Which one are you going on?
All right, we're live.
Hey, John, how's it going, man? That's old
Great, man.
farts. We stay at home on New
We stay
Year's
at
Eve.
home. We're gonna ring in the new year. What are you
Yeah,
drinking? You drinking some wine?
yeah, I got some Napa Valley wine, man. That's where I am in California. Got to have wine.
I have some Coca-Cola.
There you go. Where's Coca Cola? Is that Coca Cola is from Georgia? Is that right? Originally, is that why Ty Cobb invested in it?
I don't know. Is that where this from? I don't
I
even
don't
know.
know. Remember, he made $1 billion because he invested in Coca Cola. I don't know where they
Is
come.
that right?
Yeah,
Oh, I never heard that.
yeah. He was one of the original investors.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
He couldn't have been an original investor. It
Well,
started
I
in
don't
the
know. Original.
1800s.
Yeah, but I mean, and when he invested, yeah.
Hey, maybe when they went public, that could be.
I read that years ago. I'm pretty sure I read it correctly.
Well, here's an interesting tidbit on Ty Cobb, and I want to share this because few people know this. There are some people, and I guess it's probably the more general consensus that Ty Cobb was a racist, right? Because he's from Georgia, and that's just a knock on him. Did you know that he came from a long line of abolitionists?
No.
Did you know that his father was a state senator, and he actually lost an election because of his abolitionist stance? And Ty Cobb's grandfather was an abolitionist. He came from a family of abolitionists. And his father actually lost his Senate seat for that stance.
No.
So was he a racist?
We don't. I mean, we know he was a son of a bitch. I mean,
Yeah, I saw Buck O'Neill. Was it? Yeah, Buck O'Neill. He was on an interview, and they were interviewing him, and they were asking him that question. And you know what his answer was? It was hilarious. He said Ty Cobb was mean to everybody.
yeah.
Yeah, but he played in the mixed All-Star games and stuff, you
Mhm.
know. And so I don't know, but it doesn't appear he was. He was just like Buck O'Neill said, mean to everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even his teammates said that. It's just like no one liked the guy, and
Yeah.
which was it, Nap Lajoie that was bunting down third base line for the batting title. Remember, and like six straight bunts down the third base line, so the guy in the third baseman didn't field the ball, so he can get six straight hits or something like that for the
Oh,
Charlie
I
Awards.
don't know that
Was
story.
I don't know if it was it must have been Nap Lajoie. I don't know, but anyway, they didn't like Cobb, so they knew, hey, let's let this other guy get the batting title. I believe it's Nap Lajoie.
Is that right? I
Yeah,
never heard that
he,
story.
he had just butt down the third base line.
Well, I had heard a story when I was young, and I don't even know if it's true or not, but there was a story about how, Ty Cobb used to come spikes high, and he came into second base very hard. And there was a story how he came in on Hannes Wagner, and Hannes Wagner shoved his glove right in his mouth.
Yeah, there's also like Frank Baker. He come in high because he thought Frank Baker was soft.
Yeah.
Put the cleats high at third base.
Well, he had that radio interview in the early 60s, around 1960, 61, something like that. And he did that interview, and it was a good interview. And he actually said Nap Lajoie was the best line hitter he ever saw. And he said Babe Ruth was the best power hitter he ever saw. But that was an interesting interview. They asked him about his training. He used to run in weighted shoes in the off season to keep his legs strong, and he used to hunt a lot. And he said he never let his legs rest. He always wanted to have his legs, and he used to say that part of his base stealing prowess and success was that he would see where the ball was going, and he was always slide away from where the ball was. So, as the ball was coming in, he would slide away from the base. But it's a very good interview. Very good interview. But he gives props to Nap Lajoie and Babe Ruth. And Lajoie is one of those guys. I don't know how you feel about it. Like when I was growing up, man, I wanted his cards. Like he was one of the best.
Yeah.
I mean, the Naps were named after him. But he doesn't seem to get the love these days that he used to.
Not any. No, you know what? It's kind of weird, huh? You're right.
Yeah.
They named the team after him, and but in the past few years, for whatever reason, it doesn't. It's kind of fallen by the waist crack.
He was one of the biggest superstars of the early 1900s, man.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, just a fantastic ball player.
Yeah. He played
and one of my dream cards was at 33, Lajoie, that Gowdy.
Yeah. I only think I have one of his. It's I don't know if it's E102. I don't know. I just have one.
You know, one of the a lot of these guys, as time goes on, they're kind of lost to history. You know, I know when you and I were younger, like when in the early days of our collecting, these guys were household names. Like these were the guys you wanted to collect. And now it's just like everybody wants Mantle and Ruth and Cobb and Wagner. And a lot of these other guys just go by the wayside. Even Trish Speaker, George Sisler. You know, they just don't get to Rogers Hornsby. I mean, these are some of the greatest players that ever lived.
Yeah, yeah. Smokey Joe Wood.
Joe Wood. Although his cards are still very pricey.
Ed Walsh.
Big Ed Walsh. Now there's a guy, he has the lowest ERA in history. The last guy to win 40 games. I think he won 41.
Yeah.
And like you can get him very, very affordably.
Yeah, yeah. It is crazy though. You know, I mean, you have Mathewson, Walter Johnson, Ty Cobb. Who else? Those three are
Cy Young.
All pitchers. Most of all pitchers. You know.
Well, what's the funny part is that if you like when you hear the old guys talking, none of them consider Cy Young the best pitcher. None of them were afraid of him.
Yeah.
But he played so long and had so many wins, so his cards are worth, more than better pitchers.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that Addy Joss was a better pitcher, although his cards are pretty pricey. But there were probably Rube Waddell.
Yeah.
Probably a better pitcher. But, baseball fans and especially Hall of Fame voters, all they care about is longevity and the final numbers.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you weren't the best player during your time. And it doesn't matter if there were way better people. It's like, like Dave Parker, we talk about Dave Parker. He was considered at the time he played the best player in baseball. Right? But if you look at the total numbers, they're not going to compare to a guy that played 24 years and, just racked things up. It's like, Pujols his last 5-7 years, playing it as a DH, he's racking up total numbers, but he wasn't as feared as he was when he was young. But he's racking up those numbers, right? That seems to be what baseball fans care about, the longevity.
Yeah, but is it? We're talking about Trish Speaker or Nap Lajoie or even Dave Parker. Is it baseball fans or just card collectors? Because we're in the card collecting community. I don't know if the average baseball fan that's a real knowledgeable fan thinks it that way too, or is it? I don't know how that.
Well, for me, the one thing that blew my mind, and I never knew this until I got onto YouTube, because I'm a baseball fan. I grew up a baseball fan. I'm a card fan, and I wanted to own all the good players. But there are a lot of guys that only collect Hall of Famers, right? So they would rather have Harold Baines than Dave Parker. And that's just the way it is. Like some people just limit their collecting. And I understand that because it's hard to collect everything. I'm one of those guys, I want to have everything. But it's hard, especially nowadays with budget and everything, that you can't collect everything. So people kind of pick niches. And one of those niches is they'll only buy Hall of Famers. They only want autographs of Hall of Famers. They only want cards of Hall of Famers. Well, there are a lot of players, in my opinion, that were better than some of the people in the Hall of Fame. Like I would take Dave Parker over Harold Baines all day long, every day. Like Harold Baines was never considered a top 10 player in baseball. And Dave Parker was considered the best player in baseball, right? Even Don Mattingly, like Don Mattingly in his heyday, in his prime, was phenomenal. I mean, high average, could hit for power, but he didn't have the longevity. You know, if a guy gets hurt, that's what hurt Tony Oliva. Tony Oliva blew out his knee. You know, he had a really bad leg injury. But before that, you know, he was on pace. You know, everybody knew he was a fantastic hitter. Everybody. But the longevity caught up with him. And how long did it take him to get in? And I'm glad he's finally in.
Yeah. It's a player's story. I mean, you know, Joe Jackson, for instance, fantastic player. If he would have played, he didn't get, you know, didn't cheat or whatever. He played a whole 20 years in the major leagues. His cards would not be worth what they are now. You know, he'd be one of the greats, but, you know, he'd be just like, he could be just like a George Sisler. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? But his story, or Ed Cicotti, for instance, he would just be another name, or Buck Weaver, but their story brings the value of their cards, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain players that are respected for the short period of time where they were phenomenal. It's like, to me, if Ohtani retired tomorrow, he's one of the greatest players to play for what he did, like cutting edge stuff. Like, to me, he's a Hall of Famer already, to me. But there's no way he would be voted in, you know, if he struggles and he makes the 10-year mark or whatever. You know, but those fantastic players, like I remember Fernando Mania, Mark Fidrich, the Bird. Now, of course, he had a very short career. You know, he was, so I get that. Maybe, you know, I'm not saying to put him in the Hall of Fame, but some of these guys have a magical 1 or 2 seasons. And the funny thing about is, like, when you talk about a lot of these guys, like Donnie Baseball, you talk Don Mattingly. Well, yeah, if he would have sustained, if he didn't get hurt, you know, he would have been a great player. And there's only one guy that gets a pass when it comes to, like, injury, and that's Mickey Mantle. And everybody will be like, oh, well, he was injured. Oh, well, he was injured. That's why his stats aren't there. You know, so he gets a pass for that. But then people like Don Mattingly don't get a pass for that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Exactly. I mean, he played in New York and he won championships, you know? So, I mean, just like Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter is a fantastic player, but he wasn't the best second baseman of his time. At least I might be, you know, I've always thought, you know.
Well, he couldn't have been the best second baseman because he played shortstop.
Shortstop, I'm sorry. Second baseman, shortstop at this time. So, you know, I mean, he was a fantastic player, and he played big in big games, but I never considered him, you know, one of the all-time great players.
Yeah, well, you hit on something right there, and that is that people, you know, they put more emphasis on the position, right? Like, as a shortstop, right? He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, who hit like him and had the consistency and all that as a shortstop, right? Like you know, that's like Ernie Banks. Name me a guy that hit that many home runs as a shortstop until A-Rod came along, right? Throughout the entire history of baseball, he was the only power hitting shortstop until A-Rod came along, right?
Yeah.
So they put a lot of emphasis on position. It's like, if you want to have the debate about Scott Rowland, if he should be in or not, they'll be like, well, he was a third baseman, and that's why he should be in, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like Derek Jeter was never the best player in baseball. He was never considered close to the best player in baseball, unlike Dave Parker, who was considered the best player in baseball. But they played different positions. And as shortstops go, when Derek Jeter came up, I mean, you're in an era where, you know, Rafael Belliard could play in the major leagues. He couldn't hit his way out of a wet paper bag, but he was a good defensive shortstop. You know, there was an emphasis on defense. Your boy, Johnny LeMaster.
I mean, none of those guys get hit in the 70s, shortstops. It's just kind of funny.
I mean, Mark Belanger, one of the smoothest shortstops in history. Dave Concepcion was one of the better hitting ones, and he
Yeah.
still couldn't compete with the Derek Jeter. It was just a different. It was played differently, the game. And yeah, I mean, shortstops were not hitters like they are today.
You would figure that they would figure out, hey, they can find someone that can at least hit the ball and play defense at the same time. There has to be someone in the world that can do that. But then it seems like that in the 70s.
Yeah, they were, it's the same with the leadoff hitter, right? They were bragging after, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. Acuna was already, like, had more home runs than any leadoff hitter. And I'm like, that's because he would have been a number 3 hitter in the old days. There's no way Acuna would have been a leadoff hitter in the old days.
Yeah.
Omar Marino would have been a leadoff hitter. Acuna would have been a number 3 hitter. Yeah. He would have been in the number 3 slot.
Brett Butler.
They've changed they've changed the game a little bit. Yeah. So you can't compare leadoff hitters from today to the 70s, and you can't compare shortstops today to the 70s because the game's changed. Yeah. And these shortstops come in. When you were growing up, who were the best baseball players? They were always shortstops. The best players always played shortstop. Yeah. When you were growing up, but when it got to the pros, that changed. Yeah, they moved them to other positions.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny, the leadoff hitter, Billy North. There was always a slap hitters that could run.
Yep.
Billy North, Brett Butler. I could probably think of a bunch of them off. I can't think of them offhand, but they're all
made Ricky Henderson so phenomenal when he came up. Because he could hit for power, he could hit for average, he could run like the wind, obviously. But he was, a special player in that era. And it's hard to compare eras because the games change.
Yeah, it's a completely different game now.
Yeah, completely different game. I mean, you don't even, if a guy bats 350 like Reyes, like he doesn't even get any respect, right? Because he's not hitting home runs or he's not winning World Series. And in the old days, like when you would look at the back of a baseball card, what was the first thing I looked at was the batting average.
Yeah.
Like if it was a guy I never heard of, well, let me see if he's any good. What's his batting average? Now nobody cares about batting average. These guys are batting 260 in the All-Star game.
I think at one time, was it Bobby Bonds led the league in strikeouts, like 120, 130, Reggie Jackson. Now these guys, that's not even, it's just blown away.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to strike out 120 times. I don't care who you are.
And then you have a guy like DiMaggio, who was just phenomenal and struck out something like, 13 times in a season? And you have Johnny Mize. Johnny Mize, for a power hitter, almost never struck out. It's unheard of today. Unheard of today. Yeah. And I was watching an old World Series with the Brooklyn Dodgers, and Duke Snider bunted. He bunted. Can you imagine a power hitter bunting today?
I saw that.
They would demand a trade if you asked them to bunt. They would demand to be traded.
Yeah.
And the other thing that doesn't happen today, and it's the reason that they don't hit for high averages, is they don't hit the opposite field anymore. They pull everything.
Everything.
And it was always known that the only way to have a high average is you have to hit to all fields. Yeah. Which, going back to Dave Parker, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if you look at him, just go back and watch his 1979 World Series highlights. He hit to all fields, man. He would hit to left field. He hit in all the gaps. And that's what you had to do back then to hit for a high average. Tony Gwynn hit to all fields. Roberto Clemente hit to all fields. Rod Carew, all fields. In fact, the only high average guy I know who pulled the ball predominantly was Ted Williams. And I don't know how he got away with it.
Yeah.
Because they did the Williams shift on him. But the Williams shift wasn't named after him, right?
No, who's it named after?
It was named after Cy Williams. That was the first player they enacted the shift for. And everybody thinks it was for Ted because they did the shift against Ted Williams. But it was actually named for Cy Williams, who led the league in home runs, the National League 4 times, and was considered the Babe Ruth of the National League.
Yeah. And McCovey, you always had the shift, too, because he was a dead pull hitter.
Yeah. And that's fine if you're hitting, 35, 40 home runs every year.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you got? Did you have you picked up anything, or you got a package here? I'm gonna open it on the air here. How's that?
Oh man, you're killing me with that one.
I think you know what it. Well, I think I should.
You know that's one of my favorite all-time sets.
No.
Oh,
You
this is
don't have
different.
one of these.
This is different.
Yep. It's a Lou Gehrig. This is the stamps, the newspaper stamps.
Oh, yeah.
Sporting News.
Now, where were those distributed? How were they distributed? They were in the Sporting News, and you cut them
Sporting
out.
News newspaper, but I think there was like the Hearst Corporation, all their newspapers, the San Francisco, Los Angeles Times. I think there's like 50 different newspapers, and they would have something very similar to this in their newspaper.
Yeah, I've never seen one until you sent it to me.
And some of them are rarer than others. Sporting News is pretty common. I actually saw on Net 54 that there was like a whole sheet of them. So I don't know if there was like a insert page at one time, but there's usually like two players together or whatever.
Well, that's the I forget the year they made them. Was it 69, 70, 71, somewhere in there? They have the Dayton News.
Yeah.
And I had one of those. And they were literally like a baseball card that you cut out of the newspaper. Their newspaper.
Yeah.
But I guess they're considered cards, because I remember.
Yeah, that's the kind of fun thing is, it's kind of surprising they would grade a newspaper.
I know. I mean, they won't grade Bond bread, but they'll grade those.
Yeah. So
it doesn't make any sense.
You got to admit, this is oddball. If anything is oddball, this is oddball.
It's not oddball. It's a card.
It's not
man.
a card, though. It's not even a card.
All right, Rick. So at this point, we have to tell everybody why I go live on New Year's Eve. And that is because it is the anniversary of Roberto Clemente's death. And we have to pay homage. And we have to make a toast to Roberto Clemente, who gave up his life on New Year's Eve, trying to help others. So salute. This is my original photo my babysitter gave me as a kid.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, she said that she asked him to pose for it, and he was like, no problem. He posed for it. And I have to believe this was shortly before his death. You can tell it's in Three Rivers Stadium, which opened in 1970. And they used these uniforms starting in 71. So I believe this photo is probably from 72.
Okay. His photos
which was probably it was probably the year he died.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But one of my cherished possessions. She knew I was a Clemente fan as a kid, and she brought it to me.
Growing up, like I said, in California, Clemente was big. You had Mantle, Mays, Clemente, Stan Musial was, his name was out there, but Roberto was really popular even, in California for one.
Yeah, my father was such a baseball fanatic that my mom always tells the story that he delayed their wedding because St. Louis was in Pittsburgh and he wanted to go see Stan Musial play. And back then, they weren't on TV, so. Not very often. They were on TV, but not very often. So, and if the stadium wasn't sold out, it was blacked out at home. So the only way you could see the game was to go to the game. I don't think people realize that today.
Yeah.
It's like when I was growing up, the Pittsburgh Steelers were always sold out. So I could always watch the home games. But teams that weren't sold out, they were blacked out when they were at home because they wanted you to buy the tickets.
Yep, exactly.
So the only way you could watch them is if they were sold out.
49er games, when they sucked in the 70s.
Yep.
they wouldn't sell out. I have to listen on the transistor radio. You know.
Exactly. And the Pirates never sold out, so I always had to listen to the home games on the radio.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to go see a guy like Stan Musial, you had to go to the stadium.
Yeah. Did you? I think the Giants would televise like 20 to 30 away games a year. Their local station with just when no, we're talking 70s type stuff.
Yeah.
You know, just the no home games would be just 20 to 30 games, usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday type stuff. You know, and then they had this thing called the Giants Vision, where you would pay $19 a month, and they would show the home games. This is early 90s. And Joe Morgan would be on there with a local, you know, and they would do called Giants Vision. So they would show home games. And you could spend like, I used to do this, $5. You'd pay $5 to watch a game. You know, if you're at home Friday night and you just weren't going to go to the game, I would pay $5. A couple buddies come over and
is that right?
Nice game.
Yeah.
And you do it
by the 90s.
You'd pay
like
the
by
$5 over the phone.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I guess by the 90s, they had the the Pirates had a network where you could watch the games, but prior to that, you couldn't.
Yeah.
They were different. They were different times back then.
Yeah, sure. I remember the game of the week, you know, and I come home from Little League and turn the TV on, and it was like early afternoon. You would have Tony Kubek, and somebody else doing the game of the week. That was always kind of cool to see that.
Yeah, on Saturdays they always had a game, and I remember being by myself, sitting in my basement. We only had one TV, like in our basement, and you didn't watch TV like you do today.
Yeah.
Like everybody's glued in front of the TV at all times. The TV, you would like go downstairs, watch it, and then leave because we had 3 channels, and there wasn't always something on. And I remember on like Saturdays they had games, and I have a distinct memory of watching Cincinnati versus the Dodgers, you know, in the early 80s. And but I would just go sit there and watch the game by myself as a kid because I just loved watching baseball. And if it was on, I would sit there and watch it.
Yeah. There's so many channels now. I mean, we were going, there's a game on, or Wide World of Sports. Yeah, it was like the Globetrotters or something. You just now it's just like you see the stuff every hour.
Yeah, well, you hit on something there that I say all the time. Like I in the old days, you knew everything that was happening. You knew every sporting event that was on. And now we have so many choices, and there's so many different things on, and you have 120 channels, and you never know what's on.
Yeah.
You never know when anything is.
Yeah.
Like I always have to look it up. Yeah. Back then, you had 3 channels. Like if there was a major event, you didn't have a choice but to know what was on because that's all that was on, right? Yeah. Like you would catch it on TV. And now you kind of have to look that stuff up. Like you have to go find it, right? Like I who goes out of their way to watch worldwide, you know, the wide world of sports? Like when we grew up, that was all you had to watch. You had the other dumb stuff because on the other 2 channels, it was dumb stuff. So you would watch Wide World of Sport. I used to watch kayak racing.
Yeah.
Like I would never watch kayak racing today, but you would watch whatever happened to be on TV, whatever sport.
Chris Schinkel with the bowling.
Yeah. And you know, there was nothing else to watch. So you watched it. So you knew all the athletes from every sport. And, you know, you watch these other things. Yeah. That's what I love about, I don't know if you have any of the, I think they were 73 to 76 Sugar Daddy cards.
No.
You know those little thin cards that came in Sugar Daddies?
Yeah.
Well, I have a whole bunch of them. And they take me back to my youth because they were so cool to get. When you get a Sugar Daddy, you get a card out of there. But they have every sport. And from the Wide World of Sports, golf, gymnastics, powerlifting. I mean, you name it, they have it. And those were the kinds of things that you saw on the Wide World of Sports. You know, you would watch that all the time. And you would see all these different little clips. They would show you this and then that. And this power lifter and this guy racing kayaks and this skier and whatever. And so you were exposed to that whether you wanted to be or not, right? And now you have to go searching for stuff. And they compete with so much, right? They compete with so much.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. Yes.
You just don't watch it. I can't.
Yeah. And I mean, I have to look up to see what's happening, whether it's the Oscar Awards or the World Series or whatever. Like in the old days, you just turned on the TV and it was there in front of you. It was constantly marketed and you knew when everything was happening. And now you got to go search that stuff.
Yeah. I hear you. So we got.
And we have 120 channels now, and we have less to watch than we used to.
Yeah.
Like I'll go through there. Half of them are infomercials. Yeah. I'm like, why are you charging me to play me infomercials? I don't get it. I should get a discount.
I hear you. So I picked this up. Pick anything else up?
I have a really rare card coming.
Do you really? Did I see it?
I don't think I showed it to you. PSA's only graded one of them.
Hey, do you have one of those? I'm going to give you one of those tins. You saw that.
I will happily buy one of those because I want to have.
I'll give it to you. I want
to have one of both.
I got it so cheap, but
you got that for a steal.
I know. I couldn't believe it. Maybe three of them plus the player for $49. It's crazy. Do you have it there? Do you have one there?
Well, that's a good player. It's not just any player.
Yeah, but what's cool, it's in the actual tin probably that it came from.
Right.
That makes it even special.
Yeah, I have the violet, but I didn't have the mint one.
Yeah, I got here's the violet, I always show this because the only one I have. You got a ton of them.
Yeah, I'm working on the set. Who is that? I can't make it out.
Ty Cobb.
You do have the Ty Cobb.
Yeah, beater Ty Cobb.
When did you get that? You never showed me that.
2001, maybe.
You never showed me that.
eBay first came out, so you got the old tab, the label. I showed you this. I don't know.
I have two of the Ty Cobbs.
This was my very first Ty Cobb I've ever, because I couldn't afford his card, but I could spend $140, $30, $20, whatever I spent for this, a beater.
Well, I want to tell you something. Like everybody in the old days, they discounted those, right? Like you could get those cheaper, but they're far more rare. How many people do you know show you that compared to the red Ty Cobb?
Oh, I know. It's a beautiful.
And her brother has the red Ty Cobb. Try to find one of those.
Yeah. I showed you the thing about somebody on Net 54. There was like 4,800 red Ty Cobbs out there with the two grading companies, PSA and SGC. 4,800. Yeah. And by far, that's the most graded card of all the T206 cards.
Well, the same with the T205. I mean, the T205 is so much more scarce, but everybody wants the red or the green.
It's double. I think the green was like 1,700 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's bad on shoulder, bad off shoulder, around 17, about the same. But the red one was like 4,800.
Well, you used to have to pay such a premium for that green one. But everybody likes the red one better because the red one looks better. It's a much better looking card for whatever reason.
But the green one is you see just as many as a whatever card, Cy Young or what, it's bad on shoulder, off shoulder. It's not like it's rare than those other cards. It's rarer than the red one though.
Yeah, well, a few years ago, everybody treated that like it was some super rare card, and that was everybody's dream card, right? And everybody was paying up for it. Nowadays, you don't even hear about people going after that card. Like everybody wants the red one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I off with that?
I think people want the green one just because it's more scarce, but there's still 1,700 out there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like more scarce. Is it rare or is it more scarce?
I don't know. It's
yeah.
I don't consider 1,700 rare.
But I'll bet you there's less of those Kogan's chips.
Yeah, not even scarce.
And I'll bet you there's less of the T205s.
Oh, they're by far, by far.
Yeah, but the T206 set is just so popular, and so many people trying to put that set together. And the thing is it's considered a complete set without the Hannes Wagner, without the McGee, what's the name, Maggie, and without the Eddie Plank. So you can really never put that set together unless you're super rich.
Yeah, yeah.
But so they just consider it a complete set without those cards. But to me, as a completist, that's not a complete set. I mean, I get it. I get why you're going to consider it a complete set, but it's not a complete set. Yeah. It's like you can call the 52 Mickey Mantle a rookie card all you want. You might consider it that, but it ain't his rookie card. So,
I mean, the only reason a T206, is because of the Wagner and the scarcity of that one. The T205, same company. T207, same company. American Tobacco Company, but they don't get nowhere near the price of a T206 card.
I know, and they're so much more rare.
Yeah.
But growing up, it was the T206 Wagner that put everything on the map.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the 52 Mantle raises some of the prices of the 52 other cards too. Like you look at a 1952 Dick Groat rookie, a very expensive card. Eddie Matthews, like way more expensive than his other cards. And the 52s. Now that's Topps first set. I get it. But it's just funny because like T206 Wagner made all his other cards jump through the roof. And the 52 Mickey Mantle made all Mickey Mantle's cards jump through the roof. No matter whether they're, 100,000 of them or not. They're all expensive now. You see that with some other players, like as Tom Brady's rookie cards get super expensive, you'll see the second year player, his second year cards go up in value. LeBron James, if you can't afford the rookie cards, the second year start jumping up. And you saw that with Michael Jordan over the past few years. His second year card was always affordable. Now that's jumping up, right? Because people can't afford the rookie card.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like some of these cards, it's just, like the 52 Mantle is just Americana. It doesn't matter if it's not rare or whatever. It's just, it's taken on a life of its own, right? And it blows my mind that anybody would pay more for that than the T206 Hannes Wagner, where there's only like 76 of them in existence. It has a better story. It's way more rare. And Hannes Wagner is, one of the great all-time early players. But most people nowadays would rather have the 52 Mantle.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Like the Ruth cards too. These Gaudy cards are going for whatever $10,000, and a foreign Ruth, which is maybe under 100 in existence, is cheaper. It doesn't make any, just half the price. It doesn't make any sense.
It's just what people want. Like you and I like the obscure stuff, the rare stuff, the different stuff. But most people just want what they see in magazines and in auctions, and they know these certain iconic cards, and that's what they're willing to pay up for. So, the 33 Gaudy is a phenomenal set, one of my favorites. So you're willing to pay up for the 33 Gaudy, even if there's 10 million more than the cards you're talking about, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like, rarity doesn't always mean demand.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Mickey Mantle card is a perfect example. It's not rare by any stretch of the imagination. The Michael Jordan card, there's over 30,000 of them graded, but it's still going to have a premium because people want it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to get one Ruth card, it's probably going to be, you're just going to get one in a lifetime. It's going to probably be a Gaudy card. You're not going to pick a more obscure card. But,
right.
The
only reason you would pick a more obscure card is if it was more affordable.
Yeah.
But even frankly, that's why I ended up with all of them, because those were all more affordable than the main Gaudis.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: times change, And now the ones that I got, they're way more rare than the Gaudis, and now all of a sudden they're being respected.
Yeah.
Like the Sanella, you couldn't give that thing away. You could get it for $100 in a high grade, and now low grades go for over $3,000.
Yeah. The worldwide gum roof
Yeah.
cards, they would go cheaper than the Gaudi cards because they're from Canada, but they're more scarce.
Yeah, which is insane because the worldwide gum are way more scarce.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yeah.
They looked as you couldn't tell in the front what's what. On the back you can. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, I have a yellow roof worldwide gum,
Yeah.
And I got it cheaper than I would have for just a Gaudi yellow.
Right. Yeah, I was always enamored with the overseas issues, so I have all kind of cards, and I could get them cheap. But times change. Now that we have YouTube, now that we have pop reports, people didn't realize how rare these cards were until more recently. And that's, I think, what has changed a lot.
Yeah, that Abdullah.
And as far as like the Sanella, it's like if you want a Babe Ruth playing days card for the average person, what else can they afford?
Yeah.
I mean, all his other cards have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
So $3,000 for a Babe Ruth playing days card is a bargain these days.
Yeah. You can find them now. There's so many out there now. I think that those have dropped. I think you can find a 1.5 for $500-600.
Yeah, they've definitely dropped, but they're still way up from where they were in 2014.
Yeah.
I had two sixes, and I was trying to move one, and I couldn't give the thing away. People are like, "Oh, I don't want that junk Ruth from overseas," kind of thing. And it's just funny how times change.
Yeah. I was. I'm going to put out a video on Tuesday. Actually, me doing a rant about the PSA set registry because I don't do it. But I recently picked up a card that I wanted to see, a Ruth card, if it was in the registry, and it's not. It's the one from France. I showed you, whatever. It's a sport card of him in the 34 Japan tour. So it's not his card. It's a sport card. But I just wanted to, I had no idea if it's a super master set. So I looked, it's not on there, which is fine. It's not a Ruth card. But the way they weight these other cards is like the Gaudi card is like weighted a 5, and you got a scarce card like the Bluebird, the one I have, the Bluebird, the larger Ruth card that looks like a postcard or whatever, a scarcer card, or even Abdullah is a 5 also, or lower weighted card than the actual most common card. It's just kind of crazy how they weight these. I don't do it, so I'm just saying it's. I looked on this list. I'm looking at all the cards, and I go, geez, man, there's probably only 50 of these in existence, and it's great, weighted lower than a Gaudi card.
PSA controls the hobby, man. So,
but I mean, it's, I don't know. It would drive me.
Whatever they say goes.
It would drive me. And then just the York, the York one. My York route.
York Carmel.
The York 1927. There's a Type 1, Type 2. Type 1 is weighted as a 6. The Type 2 is weighted as a 5, even though the Type 2 I know is 2 or 3 times scarcer than the Type 1.
Well, the Type 1s, all those Type 1 cards, they have PSA pops in the 30s. In the 30s or 20s. Those York Caramels are scarce.
Yeah.
I mean, you could call them rare, but at least, if nothing else, they're scarce.
I know, right? But it's the way they weight these things. Okay, I'll give you one. I'll give you one that I bet you've never seen one of these before. Ruth Sweetman, 1928 Sweetman. It's under the same thing as the Harringtons and the Thorpe Yinglings, but a Sweetman. We don't even know if it's ice cream. Dave says it's not ice cream, but I've never seen a Sweetman Ruth before. I think their PSA has one, and it's weighted as the same as the Harrington on the PSA set.
Right.
Say exactly the same. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. See, I'm getting all worked up. I don't even do it.
Well,
And I'm
why are
thinking,
you worked up? Why are you letting PSA control the enjoyment you have for the hobby?
I don't
Why
know.
do you need to have a
See,
registry?
I just wanted to see if my card was
You want
on
to
there.
flex for people?
I just wanted to see if my card was on there. And then I start getting all worked up. I'm thinking, what the heck? I could do a better job of just weighting these cards. That's crazy. And I'm afraid to look at Chrissy Mathewson or someone else.
Yeah.
Or Willie Mays, And if I bet you the Briggs meat is the same as his 52 or something like that.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, they didn't know about these cards at one point. I mean, if they only graded one of them, then they would have only learned about that card at the point that they graded it, to be honest. And how are they even qualified to grade it if they've only ever seen one? How are they even qualified to authenticate it?
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't. I mean,
if they've only ever seen one, they have nothing to compare it to.
I have never seen a Sweetman Ruth.
No, I had never even heard of a Sweetman Ruth.
There's one that exists, but supposedly there is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, hell, if Dave doesn't have it, it's not out there.
If Dave doesn't have it, it doesn't exist.
He's got the other three: the Yinglings, the Thorpe, and the Heritage. It doesn't exist. But
it could be fake for all we know if there's only one in existence and nobody ever heard of the company.
So just, I mean, my bottom line with that stuff, I would do it if all my cards were PSA. Let's say if all my Ruth cards or Chrissy Matthew cards, for whatever reason, they're all PSA, I might put them on a registry. But I'm not going to say that word, but mine starts with an F. But I have all kinds. So it doesn't make any sense for me to do any of that. So I don't even attempt to.
I'm the same way, but I wanted to start an F word registry where you can register, like if you have Beckett, if you have SGC, whatever, like you could just track all your cards. Because why should, this is why, it's brilliant on PSA's part. Because if you want to have a registry, you have to swap every card over to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, why can't we have a mixed registry?
Well, because no one wants, I mean, I think SGC should do a mixed one, not just their own, because they would bring people over from PSA and BVG, and then people would probably go, hey, here's a mixed one. I can very easily buy an SGC, put it on the registry. I don't have to buy a PSA one.
Yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think most collectors have everything. They don't just, they're not so brainwashed. They only deal with one company in their entire life. Yeah. To me, but I definitely know there are people that no matter what they get, they'll pay extra to have it reslabbed or whatever, because they want it all the same. But I've seen over recent years, over the last few years, even guys that are like that are switching now to SGC and other companies, right? I don't know. What do you think about that? Am I right?
I think so. But what we collect right now, pre-war, I don't know one person, at least I don't know one person that collects pre-war that just has PSA cards.
Well, you're right. You're right about that. You're absolutely right about that.
It'd be impossible to just get PSA cards, Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but from my experience, most vintage guys like SGC. They prefer that.
Yeah,
I'm one of them.
Yeah, because I want the card, not the grade, so I could care less. It could be even a BVG. If I have to have a BVG, I'll pick it up. I mean, if it's a card that I'm not going to find again, I'll pick up a BVG card.
Yeah, me too. My only problem with BVG is those baggies. They make the card like it's dull, like you can't see it clearly.
Yeah.
And I hate that. Yeah. I want to see the card. Like I don't collect slabs. With BVG, you're collecting a slab because you can't see the card.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the card does not present well. So you're literally collecting the slab over the card in that instance. And I have them, and quite honestly, I'm thinking of cracking them all out and keeping them raw, because Some of them look great. Some of them look good. But some of them are like cloudy and the baggy just overwhelming. And I just want to crack those damn things out of there so I can see the card better. Because I don't collect slabs. I collect cards.
Well, you have to talk to Jake. He knows how to. When Jake comes over, he can crack everything for you because that's all he does.
I have cracked plenty of PSA slabs. They're easy peasy. Like they practically fall off. But I have never attempted to crack a Beckett. They're so thick.
I did.
Those worry me a little bit because you almost need a chainsaw to get them off.
Yeah. I get a screwdriver and pop it off. I did a Jim Brown rookie because, like you're saying, I couldn't see the card.
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell? It's all,
Yeah, it's awful.
It's awful. So I sent it to SGC and it got the same grade to 2 point, whatever. But that wasn't the point. I just didn't want it in the,
Yeah, PSA slabs are so easy to crack. I mean, they practically fall apart anyway. But you just take some pliers and crack it at the top 2 spots where it connects, and then you just pull it open. It's easy peasy.
Yeah.
And like GMA and those kind of grading company, easy, simple. But Beckett, yeah, that's a more of a challenge, and I don't want to damage the card.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be pissed off, go on PSA registry and look up Roberto Clemente's how they weight the cards and see if you agree.
See, here's the thing. PSA never pisses me off because I give them no viability in my life. Like they can only piss you off if you care, right?
I mean, I don't know.
PSA does not control my love of the hobby, my love of cards, or how I evaluate my cards.
I mean, I think it's just lame, though. I mean, it's just like
it's completely lame, but it doesn't matter because everybody will use it.
It's like it's common sense, and I don't know. It doesn't make it.
So we'll do another toast to Roberto Clemente.
And I wish I don't have one here in front of me, but
all right, salute.
You want to get into the what's his Kurt's card care?
I mean, it's a whole new world, Rick. I mean, things like that make me want to leave the hobby. I'm not gonna lie. Makes me just want to stop.
You sent me that one, or sent on a little misfit thing about that one earlier today. The guy's advertising for Kurt's Car Care, and he's got his thing out. And I'm just thinking, this is a freaking baseball card. What is going on here? It's like, come on.
I know, right?
I'm like, could you see that when you're first growing up? What the hell? This guy's waxing his cards and doing this to his cards, and what the?
It's like the guy that says, I'm not a drug dealer, but he sells drug paraphernalia. Or, I'm not a terrorist, but I sell books on how to make homemade bombs. You're empowering the scammers. You're empowering anybody that wants to go out and scam people. You're providing them with the blueprints.
Yeah.
So that's the way I view it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do that, you fix a crease or whatever, then tell the person you're selling it to that I fixed this crease. If you don't tell them, then obviously
they ain't freaking telling anybody. And these people that say, oh, well, it's just for people who their personal collect bullshit. Yeah. It's for the scammers. You're sending that shit into PSA so that you can get higher grades and you can make more money. That's who's using that. Yeah. Are you using it? No. Am I using it? No. And I collect mostly probably raw cards, most of them.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to use that. You're trying to get over on PSA and they can't tell the difference. So doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Everybody's happy. You're scamming somebody. You're fixing your cards. You're sending them to PSA. They're assigning a higher grade to them. When you sell them, you're making more money. The guy that buys that card has no clue. So what difference does it make? But I am telling you this. I am making this statement, and people would disagree with me, and maybe I'll get some troll comments again. But as time goes on, there will be more altered cards in slabs than there will be raw. I assure you of that. Because today there is no incentive. There is no incentive, zero incentive to alter a raw card. Zero. The only incentive is to alter a graded card, a card that you can get a high grade on. What say you?
I agree. I agree.
Because you're never going to get top dollar for a raw card, period, anymore. So the only real investment you have, the only real incentive, I should say, the only real incentive you have is to alter it to get graded. Because that's where you're going to get the high money.
Yeah. I don't know. See, we all grew up, where you would just rubber band it or whatever in a shoebox. You just didn't care. So I don't know, just a whole different.
Yeah, people are always like, oh, people have always altered cards. Okay, so it still makes it right. Yeah. It's like if somebody else murdered somebody and you murder them, that makes it right. Yeah, sure. They've always done this, right? But cards weren't worth a tiny fraction of what they're worth today. Not a tiny fraction. So you had to pay $20 for that 1971 card that was colored in. Oh, whoop-de-doo, you lost $20. Now you might lose 20,000. There's a big difference. There's a big difference.
I don't know. The hobby passed us by, man. We're relics.
Life's passed me by, man. The whole country's passed me by.
We're relics. We're old.
We are. Get off my lawn. Should I go get my Muppets masks?
Yeah, there you go. Oh my God. So we got anything else you want to see?
No, quite honestly, I need to get back to my wife so that she keeps that title of my wife.
All right.
And ring in the new year with her. But I wanted to pay homage to my man Roberto Clemente, as I did last year. One more salute, man. Rick, I'm so excited for the National. I'm ready to leave tomorrow.
Are you gonna? You're going all the days, I hope, right?
I'm going the whole time, man. I'm planning on driving. It's a long drive, but I want to make a road trip of it. Maybe stop at some card shows along stores along the way. Just relax. I'm gonna take some time off. I'm just gonna drive up.
How long does it take driving wise?
I don't know. I haven't mapped it out, but it's I've been to Cleveland many times because I grew up in Pittsburgh, and Cleveland's only 2.5 hours from me, and I would go to conventions there. I know Cleveland pretty well. At least I used to. I used to hang out at the Flats, the convention center. I used to go to the Stouffer Hotel. It was a fantastic hotel back in the day. There was an underground mall behind it, and they used to have a phenomenal brunch there. And they had the Pepsi 250, which was an Indy race that I went to. And they used to have a big brunch there, and then you go to the Indy race. And anyway, Cleveland used to be a fantastic city. So I'm excited to get back there because I used to go all the time. Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to be. It's probably at least 12-hour drive for me.
Okay.
So I figure I'll maybe stop along the way.
Spend the night.
I'm gonna reach out to Jake and see if anybody in North Carolina needs a ride. Maybe they want to hop a ride with me.
There you go.
We'll go drive around because they're on my way. Anybody that's on my way is welcome to ride with me.
And that little car of yours?
Hey, whatever. I could see 3 people.
All right.
If I get enough people, I'll rent a van. I don't care.
That's true.
It's such a wonderful experience, and the road trip's half the fun for me.
Yeah.
So I would rent a little mini bus or a van or whatever if I had enough people.
Gotcha.
And I'm planning I want to do a YouTube group trip to the Baseball Hall of Fame, because believe it or not, I've never been there, and it's on my bucket list. And I think it would be an awesome little venture to get a bunch of YouTubers together and go to the YouTube Hall of Fame together. I think that'd be fun.
Where's the
I'm sorry, I said the YouTube Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame.
That's coming up too.
That's coming up too. Who you voting for? I'm putting you on the spot.
No, I don't.
No, I'm not asking you who you're voting for, but
is the Cleveland has the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right?
Yes, they do. They used to have they had the if I'm not mistaken, they had the very I think they had the first ESPN Center. You know, they closed those down, but I think they had the first one there.
How far is the Football Hall of Fame?
That's in Canton. That's not too far. I mean, if you're going to go the whole way to Cleveland, why not go to Canton?
Yeah. Well, maybe that's part of your trip, man. I don't know which way. I've never.
Well, you know, my hometown, my area, Latrobe, PA, they missed out on the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They should have it because they were the home of the first professional football game.
Oh, really?
Yes. They were the first professional football game in Latrobe, PA. That's where Arnold Palmer's from. It's where the banana split was invented in 1904. And it's Mr. Rogers' real neighborhood.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Hey, did the Steelers win today or lose?
They won big.
Did they really?
Yeah, they should have had another touchdown, but Najee Harris at the end of the game was running in for a touchdown and decided to just slide like a quarterback because he had the game won.
Gotcha. Did he play well, the quarterback? Or?
I want to tell you something. Najee Harris, the last 2 weeks has been insane. Just running people over, carrying people for 5, 6, 7 yards. That guy has stepped it up the last 2 weeks, and I got to give him props. I mean, he's just been a beast.
He grew up in my area.
Now that they decided to throw to George Pickens, I told you that guy, he catches everything thrown at him. They have unleashed him. They're finally throwing the ball. I mean, we had to get rid of the offensive coordinator. He had more backward passes than forward passes. He just would screen, backward passes. And these young quarterbacks, they're in 3rd and 13, 2nd and 12th. I mean, they were always in unmanageable distances. And since he's gone, you know, you bring in Mason Rudolph, and he has, you know, they run the ball with a little success. He's looking at 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7, 3rd and 5, you know, manageable downs. They're not running those stupid backward passes they've been running for the last 7 years.
Who's going to be the quarterback next year?
It'll be Kenny Pickett. But I've been an advocate of Mason Rudolph because every time he filled in for Big Ben, you know, he has a very winning record. And that one year Big Ben went down, he was doing very well, but he got hurt. And then they brought in Ducky. I forget his last name. He was like on the practice squad. We had to go with some guy on the practice squad. But Mason Rudolph has always been good when he's had to come in. And the thing about him is he likes to throw deep. So he's not the best short passer, but he could go downfield. And when you have a guy like George Pickens, he finds him. And the thing about him is he's real smart because every time he sees George Pickens as one-on-one, he'll throw him the ball regardless. Yeah. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, he comes down with it. So that's why they've had 2 400-yard games now in a row, which they hadn't had in years. Because our offensive coordinators and our offensive schemes have sucked. Just horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, the play calling is just horrible. Now that we're running with success, like that's the difference maker at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see when somebody shuts us down, when they shut the run down, if they're able to do that, then we'll see how good Mason really is.
Yeah. Hey, what happened to Lou?
I don't know. I think, you know, his wife has him at some party. And, you know, he's got to do what he's got to do because he doesn't even know what he takes in his coffee without his wife. All right. Speaking of wife, I got to get back to mine.
All right, man.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Couple old farts.
Yeah, Rick, I don't know why anybody would listen to us.
I don't know. I don't remember yesterday. So I was saying.
Happy New Year.
All right, man.
And congratulations to your 49ers.
Yeah, huh? We got to buy.
Yep.
We got to buy to the playoffs. And,
fantastic team.
Well,
although the Ravens, man, they are the real deal. They're blowing out all these great teams.
Yeah, I don't know. They're
tough. The real deal this year.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see what happens, but impressive.
All right, man.
All right.
Take care.
See ya.
All right, bye.